Tom lived in a small and quiet village surrounded by fields and narrow roads. Most people in the village followed the same routine every day. They woke up early, went to work in nearby towns, returned by evening, and spent their nights talking about familiar things. Life was simple, and people liked it that way. Anything different felt strange to them. Tom was different. He was a calm man who spoke little and listened more. While others gathered in the market or tea shop, Tom often walked alone toward the forest at the edge of the village. The forest was large and deep, filled with tall trees, birds, and soft sunlight breaking through leaves. To most villagers, the forest was only a place to collect firewood or pass by quickly. To Tom, it felt like home. For many years, Tom had lived in a small rented room in the village. The noise, the crowded paths, and the constant talk made him feel tired. He dreamed of a quiet place where he could breathe freely and live at his own pace. That dream slowly took shape in his mind, and one day, he decided to speak about it. One morning, Tom stood near the village well where many people gathered. In a calm voice, he said he planned to build a house in the forest. The words spread quickly. At first, people thought it was a joke. Then laughter filled the air. Some villagers shook their heads. Others smiled with disbelief. A few laughed openly and made jokes about wild animals and loneliness. They said no one could live alone in the forest. They said it was foolish and unsafe. They said Tom would regret it soon. Tom listened without reacting. He did not argue. He did not try to explain his feelings. He simply nodded and walked away. The next day, Tom began his work. Every morning, while the village was still waking up, Tom walked toward the forest carrying tools and wood. People watched him from a distance. Some laughed again. Some whispered. Children followed him for a while and then ran back, telling stories about him. Tom chose a small clearing deep inside the forest. Sunlight reached the ground, and the soil was strong. He stood there for a long time, imagining walls, a roof, and a door. He imagined quiet mornings and peaceful nights. With steady hands, he began to clear the ground. The work was slow and hard. Tom worked alone. He cut wood, shaped it, and carried stones. His hands grew rough, and his body felt tired, but his mind felt clear. Each small step brought him closer to his dream. Back in the village, the jokes continued. People said Tom was wasting his life. They said he would come back begging for help. Some even placed small bets on how long he would last. Every time Tom passed through the village to buy supplies, eyes followed him. Laughter sometimes followed too. Tom did not respond. He kept his head down and moved forward. As days turned into weeks, the sound of hammering became familiar in the forest. Birds flew away and returned again. The forest slowly accepted Tom. He learned its sounds and moods. He learned when rain would come and when the wind would change. At night, Tom returned to his rented room, exhausted but hopeful. He thought about the house taking shape little by little. He imagined a door opening to trees instead of streets. That thought gave him strength. One evening, a villager named Ben spoke loudly in the tea shop. He said Tom was trying to act clever. He said the forest would teach Tom a hard lesson. Others laughed and agreed. No one defended Tom. To them, his dream made no sense. But Tom did not hear these words. He was in the forest, placing the first wooden posts into the ground. As he worked, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt peace. The sun slowly set behind the trees. Light faded, and the forest grew quiet. Tom stepped back and looked at the posts standing firmly in the soil. They were not much, but they were a beginning. That night, as he walked back to the village, his clothes were dirty, and his body was sore. Some people saw him and laughed again. Tom did not stop. His steps were steady. Deep inside, he knew this was only the start. The village laughed now, but Tom believed in patience. He believed that time would speak for him. And somewhere in the quiet forest, a small dream had already taken its first strong roots. The next weeks passed slowly, but Tom did not stop. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise. While the village was still quiet, he ate a simple meal and picked up his tools. Then he walked toward the forest with steady steps. The path became familiar to him. The trees felt less strange, and the air felt lighter with each passing day. The house was still far from complete, but its shape was becoming clear. Wooden posts stood firmly in the ground. A basic frame connected them. Tom worked carefully, measuring each piece and fixing mistakes without anger. He believed that rushing would only bring problems later. In the village, people continued to talk. Some villagers said Tom was stubborn. Others said he was brave but foolish. A few younger people felt curious and wanted to see the house, but fear of being mocked kept them away. Ben still spoke loudly in the tea shop, saying Tom would soon give up. Laughter followed his words every time. Tom heard some of these comments when he came to buy nails or rope. He felt the looks on his back, but he did not let them enter his heart. He reminded himself why he started. This house was not for praise. It was for peace. One afternoon, a man named Sam walked past the forest edge and stopped. He saw Tom lifting heavy wood alone. Sam watched quietly for a long moment. Then he shook his head and walked away without saying anything. Even silence sometimes carried judgment. The work became harder as the walls began to rise. Tom's hands ached, and his back felt stiff. Some days, rain slowed him down. Other days, strong sunlight burned his skin. Still, he returned every morning. He talked to no one, but his actions spoke loudly to the forest around him. Birds watched him from branches. Small animals passed by without fear. The forest did not mock him. It accepted him as he was. At night, Tom sat in his rented room and planned the next steps. He drew simple shapes on old paper. He counted his money carefully. He had little, but he used it wisely. He chose strong wood instead of fancy items. He wanted the house to last, not to impress. One evening, while Tom rested, loud rain fell on the village. Water gathered in the streets. Roofs leaked in some houses. People complained and worried, but by morning, the rain stopped and life returned to normal. The forest, however, stayed calm. Trees absorbed the rain, and the ground remained firm where Tom was building. Tom noticed this. He smiled quietly. A few days later, a child named Leo followed Tom into the forest. Leo was curious and fearless. He watched Tom work and asked simple questions. Why here? Why alone? Why not stay in the village? Tom answered kindly. He said the forest helped him think clearly. He said quiet places made strong dreams. Leo listened with wide eyes. When Leo returned home, he spoke about the house with excitement. Some adults laughed again, but a few listened. Slowly, something began to change. People still mocked Tom, but curiosity grew. Some villagers walked closer to the forest edge. They did not speak to Tom, but they watched from a distance. They saw walls rising straight and strong. They saw care in every movement. Ben noticed this and felt uneasy. He spoke louder than before, making bigger jokes. But his laughter sounded forced now. Not everyone laughed with him. Tom added a roof frame next. This was the hardest part. Lifting wood high above the ground tested his strength. One day, he slipped slightly but caught himself in time. He rested, drank water, and continued. He did not complain. He did not blame the forest. He accepted the challenge. As the house grew, Tom began spending longer hours there. Sometimes he stayed until sunset, watching light pass through the trees. He imagined mornings filled with birdsong and nights filled with calm silence. These thoughts gave him energy when his body felt weak. The village noticed his absence. Tom no longer appeared often in the market or tea shop. He was becoming a quiet story instead of a laughing joke. People spoke his name with less humor and more curiosity. One afternoon, Sam returned to the forest edge. This time, he stayed longer. He watched Tom carefully placing wooden boards. Sam almost spoke, then stopped himself. He left again, but his thoughts stayed behind. The forest house was no longer just an idea. It was real. Strong walls stood where laughter once pointed. Each nail Tom placed felt like a promise kept. That night, as Tom walked back under the stars, he felt tired but proud. He did not know what the future held. He did not expect praise or apologies. He only knew that his dream was standing firm, just like the house rising quietly among the trees. And while the village still laughed at times, the sound was beginning to fade. Winter arrived earlier than usual. The first heavy snow came one morning without warning. The mountains disappeared behind thick white clouds, and the wind moved fast through the trees. In the village, people looked at the sky and felt a small worry, but most of them brushed it away. Snow was normal here. Cold was normal too. Tom felt something different. He stood outside his double cabin and watched the clouds. The air felt heavy, and the wind carried a sharp sound. Tom remembered the winter from his past, the one that taught him hard lessons. He did not panic. He prepared. He checked both cabins carefully. He tested the stoves and cleaned the pipes. He stacked firewood inside and outside, covering it so snow could not touch it. He moved food from storage into easy reach. Everything had a place, and everything was ready. In the village, life continued as usual. Shops stayed open. Children went to school. People talked about the snow but did not fear it. Ben laughed again at the tea shop, saying winter always looked worse than it truly was. Many nodded and agreed. By the second day, the snow did not stop. Wind pushed snow against doors and windows. Roads became harder to see. Still, the village believed it would pass soon. They had seen storms before. They trusted the weather to behave as it always had. Tom did not trust hope alone. He stayed mostly inside, moving between the two cabins. The narrow hallway held warmth just as he planned. When the wind hit one side hard, the other side stayed calmer. Tom adjusted quietly, keeping both stoves working at different times to save fuel. On the third day, power in the village went out. Lights went dark. Heaters stopped working. Phones lost signal. At first, people treated it like a short problem. They lit candles and waited. But hours passed, and nothing changed. Snow kept falling, thick and endless. Some villagers tried to leave, but cars could not move. Roads were buried. Panic started to grow, slow but steady. Tom watched from his window as snow covered the land. Trees bent under its weight. Paths disappeared. He felt no fear, only focus. He melted snow for water and ate simple meals. He stayed warm. By the fourth day, the storm became something the village had never seen. Wind screamed through the night. Snow piled higher than fences. Some roofs began to crack under the weight. Inside homes, the cold crept in. Food became harder to manage. People gathered together, hoping shared warmth would help. Ben's house lost heat first. He moved his family to a neighbor's place. Mia shared her home with 2 other families. Space became tight. Tempers grew short. Fear found a voice. Someone mentioned Tom. At first, it was a quiet thought. Then it became a question. Had anyone seen his cabin? Was it still standing? Did he have heat? On the 5th day, a small group tried to reach Tom's land. The walk was hard. Snow reached their knees. Wind pushed them back, but they kept going. They had no better choice. When they reached the double cabin, they were shocked. Smoke rose calmly from both chimneys. The doors were clear. The structure stood strong against the storm. Tom opened the door and looked at them with calm eyes. He did not smile. He did not question them. He simply welcomed them inside. The warmth hit them instantly. Children stopped shivering. Adults felt their shoulders relax for the first time in days. Tom guided them into the first cabin, then the second, spreading people carefully so space and heat stayed balanced. Word spread fast. By the next day, more villagers arrived. Some walked slowly. Some carried small bags. Some carried nothing but hope. Tom welcomed them all. He organized sleeping areas. He shared food fairly. He kept the stoves burning without waste. The hallway between the cabins became a place of quiet movement. Warm air stayed trapped inside. Snow could not enter. The design worked exactly as Tom planned. Outside, the storm showed no mercy. Inside, calm ruled. Ben sat near the stove, silent. He did not laugh now. He watched Tom move with steady control. Mia helped serve food. Rob repaired a small bench with tools Tom provided. The cabin was not just shelter. It was order in chaos. Children slept peacefully, wrapped in blankets. Their parents watched them and felt relief. No one spoke loudly. Respect filled the space. On the 7th day, the wind slowed. Snow stopped falling. The sky slowly cleared. Sunlight touched the white land for the first time in a week. Rescue teams began reaching the village. Roads were cleared slowly. Help arrived. When officials saw Tom's double cabin, they were amazed. While many homes had damage, his stood strong. While many people suffered, those inside his cabin were safe. Tom stepped outside and looked at the quiet mountains. He felt tired, but his heart was steady. He did not feel proud in a loud way. He felt thankful that preparation had meaning. Behind him, villagers stood quietly. The useless double cabin was useless no more. When the storm finally ended, the village looked like a different place. Snow covered everything in deep layers. Roads were hidden. Fences were gone. Trees stood broken or bent. The silence after the storm felt heavy, as if the land itself was tired. Rescue workers arrived slowly. They cleared paths and checked houses one by one. Some homes were damaged. Others were too cold to use. People stepped outside carefully, blinking in the bright light that reflected off the snow. Tom's double cabin stood strong. The workers looked at it with surprise. They touched the walls and checked the roof. Everything was solid. Smoke still rose gently from the chimneys. Inside, people were warm, safe, and calm. One worker asked Tom how he managed to keep everyone safe. Tom answered simply, "I planned." The villagers gathered outside as the days passed. They helped clear snow together. Neighbors who had barely spoken before now worked side by side. The storm had changed something in them. Ben stood near Tom one morning. He looked tired, but his eyes were honest. "I laughed at you," Ben said quietly. "I was wrong." Tom nodded once. "Winter teaches." Ben did not argue. He picked up a shovel and helped clear the path between the cabins and the village. Mia visited later with warm bread she had baked once her stove worked again. She placed it on Tom's table. "You shared everything," she said. "You did not have to." Tom looked at the bread and then at her. People matter more than walls. Word spread beyond the village. Nearby towns heard about the double cabin that saved lives during a 7-day storm. Some visitors came to see it. They asked questions. They took notes. Tom answered what he could, but he never turned it into a show. Life slowly returned to normal, but normal felt different now. People began fixing their homes with new ideas. Some added better storage. Others built stronger doors. A few asked Tom for advice. He helped when he could, showing simple designs and explaining why balance and backup mattered. Children followed him often. They watched him work and asked questions. Tom answered patiently. He showed them how small choices could make big differences. One evening, the village held a small gathering. It was not planned. People just came together naturally. Someone lit a fire outside. Warm food was shared. Laughter returned, but it was softer and kinder than before. Ben stood up and spoke. "We thought we knew everything," he said. "But one man thought ahead, and it saved us." Everyone looked at Tom. Tom felt uncomfortable with so many eyes on him. He cleared his throat. "I am not special," he said. "I just listened to the land." The crowd nodded. They understood now. As weeks passed, snow melted slowly. Green returned to the valley. Birds came back. The mountains looked calm again, as if nothing had happened. But the people remembered. The double cabin became a quiet symbol, not of pride but of care. Tom continued his simple life. He repaired tools. He improved small things in the cabins. He stayed kind and quiet. He did not charge anyone for help. He believed knowledge grew best when shared freely. One day, a young man from another village arrived. He wanted to build a safe home for his family. Tom walked with him, showing how to choose land, how to watch the wind, how to respect winter. "Build for the worst," Tom said. "Hope for the best." The young man thanked him and left with a strong heart. As another winter approached, the village felt ready. Supplies were stored. Plans were made. People checked on each other more often. They did not laugh at preparation anymore. Tom stood outside his double cabin one evening and watched the sun set behind the mountains. The air was cold, but calm. He felt peace. The storm had tested everything. It had taken comfort and pride. But it had given something back. Respect. And the double cabin, once called useless, now stood as quiet proof that thinking ahead can change lives. Another winter came to the mountain village, but this time it felt different. Snow still fell, and the wind still blew hard, yet fear no longer lived in the hearts of the people. They remembered what had happened before. They remembered the long storm and the double cabin that kept them safe. Tom noticed the change quietly. People prepared early now. Firewood was stacked neatly. Food was stored with care. Homes were checked and repaired before the cold arrived. Neighbors spoke to each other more often, sharing plans instead of jokes. The village had learned without being told. Tom continued his life as always. He woke early, worked with his hands, and rested when the sun went down. He did not look for praise. He did not expect thanks. The double cabin was simply his home. One afternoon, as light snow fell gently, Tom heard footsteps near his land. It was Ben, carrying a small bag. "I brought seeds," Ben said. "For spring." Tom smiled slightly. "Thank you." They stood quietly for a moment, watching the snow. There was no need for long talks. Respect filled the space between them. More visitors came over the months. Some wanted advice. Some wanted to learn. Tom helped everyone the same way. He explained how wind moved. He showed why having more than one heat source mattered. He spoke in simple words so anyone could understand. He never said he was right. People said it for him. Children grew up hearing the story of the 7-day storm. Teachers spoke about planning and helping others. Parents told their children that strength was not only about power, but about thinking ahead. The double cabin became part of village life. Not as a monument, but as an example. People did not point at it anymore. They looked at it with calm respect. One winter night, a smaller storm hit the valley. It was nothing like the great one, but it tested the village again. This time, no one panicked. People stayed warm. Supplies were ready. The village stood strong together. Tom watched from his window as lights stayed on and smoke rose from many chimneys. He felt a quiet joy. He thought back to the days when people laughed, when they called his idea useless. Those words no longer mattered. What mattered was what the storm had taught everyone. Preparation was not fear. It was care. As years passed, Tom grew older. His steps slowed, but his hands stayed steady. He taught younger people how to fix wood, how to read the sky, how to listen to the land. His lessons were simple, but they stayed. One spring morning, the village held a small celebration. Not for Tom alone, but for the strength of the community. Food was shared. Stories were told. Laughter filled the air. Someone asked Tom to speak. He stood quietly, looking at familiar faces. I built 2 cabins because one can fail, he said. People are the same. Alone, we struggle. Together, we survive. No one clapped loudly. They nodded instead. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky with soft colors. Tom walked back to his double cabin, the place that had started as a joke and ended as a lesson. The wind moved gently through the trees. Snow rested peacefully on the ground. And the village, once quick to laugh, now stood ready for whatever winter chose to bring.